I dragged my exhausted body into the local burger joint, hoping for one last greasy meal before my brain completely shut down. It had been a grueling 48 hours. I had 2 midterms back to back and a research paper due by midnight. I'd barely made the deadline. Now, at 11:30 p.m., the neon lights of the restaurant felt like needles in my eyes. The place was mostly empty. A tired-looking businessman sat in the corner, and a teenage girl with bright blue hair was scrolling through her phone near the window. I ordered a double cheeseburger and sat at a booth in the back, staring blankly at the wall. By the time I reached the halfway point of my burger, the businessman had checked his watch and shuffled out. A few minutes later, the girl with the blue hair stood up and left as well. I was alone. I finished my soda and stood up to leave, noticing a heavy, leather-bound notebook left on the girl's table. I considered picking it up to take it to the counter, but I was so drained I just thought, not my problem. I walked to the front exit and pushed. The door didn't quite budge. I pulled. Nothing. I looked at the open sign, which was still glowing brightly. I rattled the handle, my exhaustion quickly turning into a cold prickle of panic. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice echoing off the tiled walls. "The door's stuck!" Silence. I walked towards the service counter and leaned over. "Is anyone back there?" There was no answer from the kitchen. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I hopped over the counter. I pushed through the swinging double doors into the prep area. The grills were still hot, hissing softly, but the line was empty. I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. I heard a rhythmic wet thud coming from the walk-in freezer. I walked towards it, my hand trembling as I reached for the heavy silver handle. I pulled it open just a crack. My breath hitched. The floor of the freezer was slick with dark, frozen crimson. A man in a stained white apron was hunched over a stainless steel prep table. He was moving with a mechanical, jerky precision. On the table was the girl with the blue hair, her coat removed, her torso opened up like a surgical specimen. The man turned his head. His eyes were wide, glassy, and completely devoid of humanity. He was holding a jagged bone saw. "You're late for the harvest," the man said, his voice a low, guttural rasp. I didn't wait. I spun my heels and bolted back into the kitchen. I heard the freezer door slam open behind me. I knew I couldn't go back to the front. The door was locked and he'd catch me in the open. I veered left into the loading bay. I ducked behind a slack of heavy industrial crates just as he entered the room. I could hear the scrape, clink, of the saw hitting the metal door frame. "I can smell the fear, little student," the man said, his footsteps heavy on the concrete. "It ruins the flavor." I looked around frantically for a weapon. My hand landed on a heavy pressurized canister of CO2 used for the soda machines. I unscrewed the safety valve just a quarter turn, holding it like a club. The footsteps stopped right on the other side of the crate. Didn't breathe. "Found you," the man whispered as he lunged around the corner. I didn't swing the tank. I opened the valve fully. A blast of freezing, white CO2 gas sprayed directly into his face. He screamed, clutching his eyes as the flash freeze hit his skin. He fell back, dropping the saw. I grabbed a heavy metal frying basket from a nearby shelf and brought it down on the back of his head with everything I had. He went limp. I ran back to the front, grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, and smashed it against the plate glass window. It took 3 hits, but finally the glass shattered. I dived through the jagged hole, cutting my arm. I didn't care. I ran until I saw a police cruiser at the red light 2 blocks away. I spent the next 3 days in the hospital. My arm needed 20 stitches, and my mind needed a lot more. The man who saved me, or rather, The man who found me was a guy named Marcus. He was the businessman from earlier. He had realized he'd left his briefcase and came back to find the window smashed and me sprinting down the street. I thought I was just coming back for my files, Marcus told me while sitting by my hospital bed. I didn't realize I was walking into a slaughterhouse. The cook, actually a former medical student who had snapped years ago. He'd been living in the crawl space above the restaurant for months, picking off late-night customers while the night shift manager looked the other way, or perhaps was the first victim. "You're lucky you're a fast runner," the detective said when he took my final statement. "My name is Alina. I changed my major from architecture to criminal justice. I don't go out to eat after the sun goes down anymore, and I never, ever leave a door closed behind me. I was 20, drowning in debt, and desperate enough to ignore my gut, when a couple named Elias and Sarah reached out asking for a specialized sitter for their 19-year-old son, Julian. I should have asked more questions. They offered triple the standard rate for a single night at their estate on the outskirts of the country. When I arrived, the house was eerily sterile. Elias gave me the tour with a cold mechanical politeness. Sarah watched me from the shadows of the hallway. Julian was a gaunt, hollow-eyed young man who sat perfectly still in the living room. He didn't speak. He didn't even blink. "Monroe," Sarah whispered, her smile not reaching her eyes. "The cellar door stays locked. Don't go down there, and don't let Julian near it." After they left, the silence was suffocating. I tried to engage Julian, but he just stared at the blank television screen. When I brought him dinner, he ate it with a desperate, animalistic hunger. As I reached to take his plate, his hand shot out, not to hurt me, to grip my wrist. His skin felt like parchment. He led me towards the hallway, his movements jerky and panicked. He pressed his face against the cellar door, a low, guttural vibration coming from his throat. I tried to pull him away, but he was surprisingly strong. In the struggle, his sleeve pulled back, revealing wrists covered in deep, jagged scars. I realized then that Julian wasn't the one I was there to protect. He was the one being kept. Suddenly, Julian's eyes darted to the corner of the ceiling. A tiny red light was blinking, a hidden camera. He grabbed my hand and forced my fingers into his mouth. I recoiled, terrified, until I saw the truth. His mouth was a cavern of scar tissue. His tongue had been surgically removed. The front door clicked open. Elias hadn't gone to dinner. He'd been watching from the driveway. I didn't wait for him to reach the living room. I grabbed a heavy brass lamp and shattered the window in the kitchen. As Elias lunged for me, Julian, the silent boy, threw himself at his father's legs with a primal scream of effort. That split second was my only window. I scrambled through the broken glass, freezing night air hitting my face like a slap. I ran until I reached the main road, flagging down a passing trucker. When the police raided the estate an hour later, they didn't just find Elias and Sarah. They found the cellar. There were 4 others down there, all young, all silenced, all babysat by a rotating door of unsuspecting students who had never been heard from again. I survived, but my reflection in the mirror is a constant reminder. I don't look at job boards anymore. I don't trust quiet houses. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I still feel the phantom grip of a boy who couldn't scream, thanking me for running. It was 2017, and I was just weeks away from escaping the hallways of my high school for good. It was that strange period where the air feels different, half nostalgic, half suffocating. That Friday, the school was buzzing for a massive prep rally. The girls' varsity team had finally made the playoffs, and the administration was forcing everyone into the gym to manufacture some school spirit. I was in theatre tech, a class I took mostly to hide in the wings and avoid real work. 2 of my buddies, Leo and Chris, were a grade below me. We didn't even need to speak. One look at each other and we knew we were skipping. The plan was simple. slip out, hit the Taco Bell down the street, and disappear before the parking lot guards caught wind of us. The problem was the gauntlet. The main parking lot was patrolled by security guards on golf carts. To beat them, we had to take the long way, the nature trail. It was a winding path through thick pines and overgrown bush that hugged the edge of the campus, eventually leading out to a mega church parking lot. We were halfway through the trail when the atmosphere shifted. The usual bird chirps and wind through the needles went dead quiet. Then we saw him. He was a ghost of a kid, skinny, pale, with shaggy black hair that looked like he'd been sleeping in a dumpster. He was wearing the uniform of the local alternative school, a plain, oversized white t-shirt and baggy jeans, but he was covered in the woods. Leaves were matted in his hair, and his knees were stained a dark, mossy green as if he'd been crawling on all fours. He was walking directly toward us, breathing in short, ragged hitches. Leo and Chris knew him, or at least recognized him. They gave a cautious, "Hey man," expecting a quick nod. But the kid stopped dead. He looked at us with friendliness, but with a sharp, vibrating suspicion. He looked like a concerned animal deciding whether to bolt or bite. "What are you guys doing out here?" he asked. His voice was high and tight. "Just skipping the rally," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "What about you? You look like you've been camping out." We laughed, a nervous, reflexive sound. He didn't. He stared at us, his eyes darting to the tree line behind us every few seconds. He explained in a disconnected way that his mum had dropped him off for the bus to the alternative school, but he'd slipped into the woods instead. He'd been out here for hours, alone. We started to walk past him, but he didn't let the interaction end. He turned and started walking with us. "You guys have a car near here?" he asked. When we mentioned our cars were in the back lot, his demeanor changed. He became friendly in a way that made my skin crawl. It was too fast, too forced. He begged for a ride. We gave him some half-baked excuse about the car being full, and he wouldn't take the no. "You don't get it," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "People are going to be looking for me soon. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble." I tried to reassure him, telling him he could just keep hiding in the bushes. "No," he snapped. He pointed toward the mega church parking lot. "I broke into a truck over there. I took something." Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his waistband. He pulled out a handgun, matte black, heavy, and terrifyingly real. My stomach did a slow, nauseating flip. I see guns in movies, but seeing one in the hand of a kid whose eyes were completely gone was different. The air felt like it had been sucked out of the woods. He stood there, meeting each of our eyes, waiting for a reaction. The silence lasted forever. I finally managed to stammer that we wouldn't tell anyone, but we had to go. Then he asked a question that still haunts me. "Before you leave, do you guys want to see what else I have?" My buddy Leo, who has a short fuse and zero patience for threats, just started walking. "We're good, man. We're late." We didn't look back until we were 50 yards away. When I finally glanced over my shoulder, he was still standing in the middle of the path, watching us run. He took the gun back in and vanished into a smaller, darker trail leading deeper into the pines. We burst into the parking lot, and the world had exploded. Police cruisers were everywhere, sirens screaming. We didn't say a word to the cops. We were terrified and just wanted to get inside. We found a side door, but it was locked. The administrator found us and shoved us into a classroom, and that's when the lockdown became real. The pieces came together over the next few hours. The kid hadn't just stolen the handgun, he'd stolen a semi-automatic shotgun too. He'd hidden the long gun in the bush before we ran into him. While he was waiting in those woods, he had texted his girlfriend, telling her he was about to make the news and to turn off the TV when she saw his name. He told her exactly who he was going to hurt. She was the one who called the police. I think about that interaction every day. I think about the fact we interrupted his prep. I think about something else he wanted to show us in the duffel bag. We weren't just skipping a pep rally. We were walking through a crime scene that hadn't happened yet. The sun hasn't hit my face in 3 days, and honestly, I don't miss it. I'm 21, and my whole life is measured by the glow of a monitor. I spend 18 hours a day in this chair. It's one of those big office ones that's starting to groan under my weight. I'm a fat fuck who can't stop eating. Living off cold takeout and energy drinks hasn't helped. When I'm not being a Discord moderator for a bunch of idiots, I'm digging around in the parts of the internet most people are too scared to look at. I spent years looking at folders of human garbage, the absolute bottom of the barrel. I felt like I was untouchable, like I was being a brick wall. I was the one watching. I was never the one being watched. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was deep into an archive of deleted files on a dark website, just scrolling through names to see if I found anything interesting. My stomach gave that familiar, hollow growl, so I did what I always do. I pulled up DoorDash on my second monitor. I have their monthly pass because I order enough to basically pay the CEO's salary. I hit reorder on my usual, a triple bacon burger and a large fry, and checked the leave at my door box. I just watched the little car icon on the map start to crawl towards my street. It's a mindless routine. Car moves, food shows up, I eat. It was the only part of my life that felt like it was on autopilot. I was leaning back, eyes glazed over while I waited for the food, when a sidebar ad on the site I was browsing caught my eye. Usually, it's just junk, but this one was different. It was a high-quality photo of a door, not just a random door, but my door. I could see the exact spot where the paint was peeling near the lock. Over the photo, in big, clean letters, it just said, "Deliver here." My heart did a weird thud against my ribs, but I tried to ignore it. I figured it was just one of those creepy ads that tracks your location. I cloned the tab and told myself it was just a glitch. I rubbed my eyes and tried to focus. "Just a glitch," I muttered. When you spend all your time looking at the worst parts of the world online, you start to get paranoid. I told myself that some tracking program probably just pulled a picture of my building from a map. I didn't want to let a weird ad ruin my dinner. I looked back at the delivery map, and the car was only a few blocks away. I was safe in my room, behind my locked door. I was the one in control. I just needed to eat, and I'd feel normal again. I tried to go back to my Discord servers to distract myself, but a new window forced its way onto my screen. It was a private message from a site administrator on the forum I was lurking in. He didn't say hello. He just posted a link to a private group. I clicked it. My blood went cold. There were dozens of people in there, all high-level users, and they were having a live auction. They weren't bidding on files. They were bidding on me. One guy wrote, "He's been in that chair for 18 hours straight." Then, my Discord started exploding. All the other moderators I worked with every day were sending the same message over and over in our private staff channel. "Thanks for the help, Caleb. The technician is at your door." I panicked and tried to open my private folders to delete my collection, but the files were already changing. The stuff I'd spent years saving was gone. Instead, there were thousands of photos of me. Me eating, me sleeping, me staring at the screen. Every single one was dated and labeled like a report. So when it clicked, I hadn't been collecting secrets. I was being documented. This whole world, the Discord servers, the forums, it was just a cage they built for me. They provided the content to keep me in the chair, and the DoorDash to keep me in the room. I wasn't the hunter, I was the project. And now that I was finished, they were coming to collect. My computer suddenly went black. The fan stopped spinning, and the room went totally silent. Then, my phone buzzed. A notification from DoorDash. "Your order has arrived." I sat there in the pitch black, my weight pinning me into the chair. Then, I heard it. The loud, heavy click of my front door's lock turning all by itself. The door creaked open, hitting the wall. Then came the footsteps. They were slow, heavy, and loud. making the floorboards in the hallway groan as they came straight towards my room. I was still sitting here in the dark, listening to the sound of someone who has finally stopped watching me and started walking.